Hello and welcome to GG Weekend Watch, where we are back in our usual routine where Andrew Matt and Dave Young join me to look forward to plenty of competitive action at Ayr and Newbury this weekend. Of course, the feature race being the Ayr Gold Cup. So super competitive handicaps here, there and everywhere. These two will be absolutely in their element. So we'll crack on with the action. And we begin up at Ayr with a 0 to 100 handicap for 3-year-olds and over a mile at 1:15. Plenty of old friends in here, Andrew. Ayr is being joined at the market now. Titan Rock, actually. So would you like to kick us off, please?
Yeah, sure thing. Ayr is ground dependent. When he's had a going allowance of sort of negative figures according to Proform's rating, i.e. the ground was sort of slowing them down, Prospero, rather than speeding them up. He's won 5 of his 10 starts and made a profit of £27 to a £1 level stake. But this is just a case of assessing the times based on what we see at Ayr on Thursday and Friday, see how much more rain they get, if any, and whether it's slow enough for him. At this stage, it's sort of a toss of a coin job, so I'll leave him alone now at 7-2. Titan Rocks, I'm a bit worried about the class of the race for him. He's rated 85. He's running in Class 2 company. He won a Class 2 maiden this first time he raced in this grade. Since then, he's had 13 Class 2 runs and he's lost them all. So that win came back in August 2020. So I thought he might find one or two too good despite arriving here in good form. I was looking to last year's race, really, the possibility of finding the winner. Redana was post up 4th last year behind Guido, won at this meeting in 2020 as well. And I thought at first maybe he was flattered by that Carlisle win last time when up with the pace, but it signalled a return to form. He likes Ayr, so maybe he could go well. He's £4 lower than when a good 4th in this race last year. Judgment Call was half interesting. They funny race at Musselburgh last time. 5 runners. There were 2 front runners on paper who looked like taking each other on, him and Love de Vega. But Judgment Call, they decided to change tactics and restrain him. All that did, though, was gift the race to Love de Vega, Charlie Johnson's runner, who duly made all. And he finished a modest 3rd. But if they'd revert to front-running tactics, he'd have a chance. And Revic, because won this at 20-1 2 years ago and was beaten half a length with 3-1 favourite last year, he's obviously been aimed at this race again and he could go well. But I'll just go Redana. But if there's loads more rain, I will want to have something on Ayr.
Yeah, again, I feel like every single week we talk about the weather and we talk about exactly like we're analysing that as much as anything throughout the entirety of the summer and what to expect up at Ayr ground-wise this weekend. So do watch out for that. But Redana it is for now for Andrew. Dave, who did you like?
Yeah, there was 2 that Andrew mentioned that were the only 2 that I've got on my list. So Ayr obviously won at Ripon last time out. Up £4 for that, and I thought the win looked okay, so I don't think that completely negates his chance in it. But the previous win that he had, which was a good few starts back, also came at Ripon, and this race is at Ayr, so that's enough to temper enthusiasm with him. Redana was the one that Andrew kept mentioning, and I was not hoping he wasn't going to put him up, but I'm actually quite glad he's put him up because Redana's the one that I quite like. Touched on the fact that he is an Ayr specialist. He's had 8 wins from 12 runs at this track, which is a phenomenal strike rate when you look at it like that. Never be discounted around days. Current mark is 90, has won twice at this course off of 89, so £1 lower, and he had won off of 91 before with our man Paul Mulrennan on board that day as well, so he's jocked up again here. As big as 9-1, there's 3 places up for grabs, so Redana would be the one for me too.
Starting with agreement with the pair of you two. I'm always wary in these instances, but obviously we're going to take it as a huge positive for now. Redana for both of the lads and in our opener at Ayr as we head south to Newbury for the Group 3 World Trophy Stakes for 3-year-olds and over 5 furlongs at 1:30. Sense of Duty makes a return from a 455-day absence, but despite that, she is still the pretty short price favourite. So Dave, is that a price that interests you?
No.
Fair enough.
Probably just leave it at that, to be honest with you. There's 9 races we'll be covering. There's some really good racing. First race was just a nice little in, I think, because we got that bit with Redana. It's like a fairly obvious one we can put in at a bit of a price. This race, meh, is the way I sort of feel about it. I know it sounds really mean to say. It's a Group 3. It's over 5 furlongs. But I don't really get too excited about it. Market as well. We've got, like we say, Sense of Duty's in there at 11-8, and then Razzle in at 3-1, just like second favourite. I don't know definitely if either of those are going to particularly like the ground, because we said about there might be some rain up in Scotland. Newbury's officially heavy at the moment. How much that's going to dry up by Saturday or how bad the ground's going to be, I'm not 100% sure. Nymphadora, Thunder Bear and Designer won't mind the ground, but they do have something to find on figures.
That sounds like it should be one horse, Nymphadora Thunder Bear. It sounds rolled off the tongue there.
Double barreled, isn't it? I mean, Orazio can handle like ease underfoot, but wouldn't want it too deep. Sense of Duty hasn't been tested on slower, like turf growing. I was thinking of the fibre sound or the all-weather that ran last time. Sire showcasing, though, produced the likes of Quiet Reflection. That was a she, and she won on heavy ground. The Down was the top of a ground performer, though, for Sense of Duty. So I'll be honest with you, I can't make too much of a strong case to have any sort of bet in this race. So it'd be one that I'll be leaving alone.
Fair enough. We have a million races, to be honest, to be going at. And yeah, this wasn't one that was overly enticing, especially with the 5 furlongs, the unknown ground. But yeah, Nymphadora Thunder Bear. I mean, I want whatever that is. But yeah, that'd be a great name, wouldn't it? If you could just, I don't know how many characters I can, my brain can't think quick enough to total up to 18. But
maybe it should be a cocktail. I will have 2 Nymphadora Thunder Bears, please.
I'd be on the floor by the sounds of that one after about 5 minutes. It just sounds like it's rocket fuel. So
I'm
yeah,
I'm
right.
I'm going to have to do the forecast now, just in case the commentators go, and it's Nymphadora Thunder Bear.
Exactly. Now we'll all be getting thirsty if that comes to fruition. Andrew, away from cocktail making, who are you siding with here?
Yeah, there is similar to Dave. I'm quite worried because I looked at the breeding. I mean, I know from memory and experience that showcasings traditionally do well on soft and heavy going. But I did look at the dam of the favourite Margaret's Mission, and she was withdrawn 3 times on good to soft or soft going, and was top of the ground performer. And it's all very well sort of saying, well, you just look at his form and you say, well, a head defeat on his debut, then 4 wins, but a 455-day absence coming back on heavy going, and also running over a new trip first time at the minimum. So perhaps coming back over a trip short of her best. Maybe they're thinking she's not perhaps 100% wound up. Who knows? Rathbell, I don't think lost any casting defeat when going down to was it Rogue Lightning last week. That one's very, very progressive. So yeah, I think Rathbell, who traditionally does well at this time of year, could be the one. But yeah, interesting race, tricky to find the winner though. I'll go Rathbell.
Russell currently priced up at 3-1 to take on Sense of Duty. Therefore, interesting on the pedigree notes then for her. As we head back to Ayr for the listed Doonside Cup Stakes for the 3-year-olds and over 10 furlongs at 150. My Prospero gets the first time cheek pieces. He heads the market here. But Andrew, are you siding with him in this listed race? I'm really trying not to say all of these Ayr contests in my very weak, broken Scottish accent. So I'm fighting my instincts here. But anyway, take away the Doonside Cup.
I'm going to say you get in trouble for that.
Very much so.
Your best Gordon Maroon accident as well. So yes, a few interesting stats for this. The horses who contested a handicap last time out, 0 from 31 in the past 10 renewals. That's going back 11 years because this meeting was abandoned in 2017. And those who've had a break, remember last week we discussed was the Chester race where Alquar beat the Blue Stocking, and that was a race that horses coming back from a summer break had done well. It's a similar story here. Those who've been off for more than 90 days, 4 wins from 12 starts. So don't be put off by your horse, coming back from a break. So my Prospero, a bit disappointing. This season in general, the cheap pieces may or may not work at a short price. I can leave them alone. Royal Ryan, Pride of America is one I sort of quite like, but looking at those handicap last time out stats, bit of a worry that say Pride of America and Royal Ryan contested handicaps last time. Helvic Dream seems to be on the downgrade, having won a Group 1 at his peak. So I was looking at some of the other ones. I mean, Andrew Balder's got a great record in this race. So the last 10 renewals, 5 runners, 3 winners and a second. However, they were all much shorter in the betting than Imperial Fighter, and he too contested a handicap last time. So I was looking at some of the others. Luck in Brew for Rafe Beckett was one on the shortlist, and second in a listed race at Pontefract last time, 341-day break, 365-day break here. And Bateman's Bay changed yards. It was with Rafe Beckett when running moderately after being gelded last time out. But second time after the gelding operation, off a layoff for a new yard that might, help to some extent. But the one I might just chance is Lakota Sioux, who is, my tracker notes say tail swishing nut job, but talented. And she's an absolute fruitcake. She's another one who's been off the track for a long time, a year to the day. But when she was a close third on her debut, she switched the tail, and she did it next time out when favourite at Lingfield, and all the in-running players wanted to be dead against her and thought this is never going to win. And she duly won by 6.5 lengths. Next time, Clayton Little Company at 33-1, despite the tail going around like a Mick Shannon goal celebration. And same story when winning at Newmarket in Group 3 company. So, two subsequent starts after that were pretty poor. But interesting that she's come back from a break. There's obviously been a problem. Hopefully that problem's been fixed. And she's 16-1, 20-1, or something like that. For the sake of a price of a lottery ticket, I'll just throw a couple of quid at her.
Again, there it is for the bingo card watchers there for GG weekend watch. But I like the Mick Shannon gold celebration reference. So for Lakota, so you won't be able to miss her anyway in the finish. Nice price then for Andrew, and lots of stats to go to war with this race as well. Dave, where were you looking?
Well, normal service has been resumed because I disagree with Andrew in this one. Quite stoically as well, I would say, because my Prospero is miles clear of anything in here. Touched on the fact there, which will help my case, that handicappers don't really do very well in this race. And I think that horses like Royal Rhyme and Pride of America, their form is just in handicaps. They are handicappers. So I think for my Prospero, run behind Mostadaf a couple of runs ago, so penultimate start, and then the last run behind Alf Layla, that is miles clear of what anyone else in this field could even dream of doing in their careers. Go back to his half-length second behind Baybridge at Ascot last October. That was on good to soft ground. That's a decent effort. He had Helvic Dream about 12 lengths behind him that day, I think. Debuted on soft ground at Newmarket. The ground didn't seem to be a problem. So no matter which way the weather spins here, my Prospero is going to be absolutely lapping it up. My one thing that is showing some restraint is the fact that there are first-time cheap pieces. I don't really like headgear on horses. It makes me feel like there's something a little bit untoward. But this horse is just so far clear. I wouldn't necessarily have looked at him and thought that cheap pieces would be required, but they obviously know better than I do. William Haggis is a genius. 6 of his last 7 RPRs as well are at least £5 clear of Royal Rhyme, who's second in the betting and gets £5. Pride of America runs off level weights, and he's clear of them on RPRs as well. I can't see anything else possibly potentially getting close. Luck and Brew, Andrew did touch on, like, that was one that I looked at when I was trying to pick holes and everything else. Just don't think this one's necessarily good enough, but this is the furthest that she's been to date. She's been a non-runner twice the last couple of starts, so she hasn't seen it since last October. She could be improved, but she's not really good enough to beat my Prospero. He's probably one of the best bets of the day, but he is priced accordingly. And like I say, the cheap pieces are what are tempering enthusiasm and me proper putting the hammer down. But my Prospero will most definitely.
Bear in mind, he was the hammer down job at York last time, wasn't he? When he got beaten half a length at even money.
No, it wasn't a hammer down job that day. No,
no,
but he wins.
He wins. There you go. 5-4 short about my Prospero. And I'm always wary because I've been caught out a few times this season now of quite significant class droppers and just thinking, well, they're just going to go and win. And it seems to have bitten me in the arse a few times already then this season. And I'm slightly nervous about my Prospero for that, therefore. But I thought that York form was actually pretty solid. In fact, he was like hoodwinked basically by Alf Layla coming round another horse who was outside. And he did pick up again. But yeah, he was just run out of it in the closing stages. Now, of course, Alf Layla didn't quite back it up in the Irish Champion Stakes, but he still ran a solid race all the same after he was obviously ridden further back than ideal. So yeah, I think I'm with you with my Prospero in the first time cheap pieces, but I'm scared of putting the mockers on because it's happened to me so many times this season with this type of horse. But yeah, I really like him. Hopefully he can get the confidence boost of getting his head back in front. Now, more handicap action up next in the form of the Autumn Cup handicap for 3 odds and over a mile 5 at 205 down at Newbury. 92 the field, last time out winner, Racing League winner, Valstad heading the way. But Dave, who did you like here?
Well, I like the fact that I get to mention Constitution Hill in this race, for the fact that Not So Sleepy was last seen when fifth behind Constitution Hill in the Champion Hurdle 2023. Interesting one with Not So Sleepy, and it's not just because I love the jumps I wanted to talk about him. He comes here off a break of 193 days, bit of an acute number, but we might as well just stick with that for the facts of consistency. If we look at his career form, he is an 11-year-old now, so he's had plenty of runs. Of a break of at least 193 days, the form reads 1-4-1, so 2 wins and a fourth. If we also include his racecourse debut, which I'm always happy to do because he was born and then he took a while before he raced, so more than 193 days, he won then as well. So clearly he goes well off the back of a layoff. He's got some course form around here too. I think he's had a couple of places at Newbury previously, so he's not a stupidly big price, but he is about 7 or 8 to 1. We might potentially get a little bit bigger. Something always seems to happen when we have jumped horses going into flat handicaps. I don't think they get the respect they deserve. So I don't think Not So Sleepy is just turning up for a retirement race. As much as he's 11, probably some better horses potentially in the race in terms of handicapping. I think Not So Sleepy's got a little bit of a chance. We do only have 7 runners though, so we wouldn't normally get the each way for first 3, but I noticed that quite a few bookies are doing that. The only one of the more conventional horses in the race that I thought was worth a mention was Salt Bay. Being a 3-year-old gets £7 weight for age allowance, so I think in a handicap gives him a bit of a chance to find out where exactly that horse is. Ran well on heavy ground in a Group 1 at St Cloud. That was with an RPR of 108. So in this race, gets in basically running off a 98. First time in a handicap, like I said, so we're probably going to find out a little bit about it. But heavy ground potentially at Newbury, so I'll be siding with Not So Sleepy as a selection, but I'll have my eyes peeled for what Salt Bay gets up to.
See what Salt Bay does, but the main selection though, Not So Sleepy. I mean, we could have written the script, couldn't we, Andrew, for Dave therefore with Not So Sleepy. Now an 11-year-old, what a wonderful lunatic he is. I should have said it's 11 to 4. Apologies, Sophia, the prices as I refreshed my page. Literally, it just updated then about a Valsad. Andrew, who did you like?
Yeah, I wasn't particularly keen on the favourite. I mean, you look at Valsad's form, you think, oh, he's not going to have a problem with heavy going. He was second by 3/4 of length on heavy going on his debut a couple of years ago. But you look at that race, the winner and third are both running over hurdles now. One of them was refusing off a mark of 99 at Worcester the other day, and the form wasn't worth anything. His next run on officially soft or heavy going, he hung his chance away at Haydock, albeit finishing respectable third, and then first time out this term, albeit after a long absence, he was beaten 33 lengths from last of 6. He was 6 to 4 favourite, so he's clearly a bit. And then since then he's run well on Good to Soft and onto Peter, winning the Racing League, another one for your bingo card. Yeah, whether he wants, I mean, it's heavy soft in places. Showers forecast on Friday and I think on Saturday. And you know how much water they've stuck on at Newbury over the last few years. It doesn't take a lot now to turn it heavy. The going stick rating's 4.3. I can't recall it being that low for a while. So yeah, I'll leave him alone. Sea King is another one that's got a soft ground win to his name, but I don't think he likes soft ground. It sounds a bit bonkers, but you look at that 4-runner race at Goodwood, he won on soft. There were a couple of non-runners, and I think it was a case of none of them liked the ground. The 3 he beat, one of them won once on Good to Soft, but everything else was good or faster or the all weather. So I think it was just a case of toodling along at the front and staying there. He was a non-runner on soft ground earlier in the season at Newmarket, so I'll leave him alone. I was looking at the 2 outsiders, Not So Sleepy and Get Shirty. I'll go for Get Shirty. 3 of his 4 wins have come unofficially soft or heavy going. He's one I mentioned sort of semi-favourably before the E-Boy. He didn't run badly, did he? 11th and 22 behind Absurd, beaten 7 lengths. Ground good to firm that day. That's no good for him. Good ground at Haydock last time behind Post Impressionist. Again, another respectable mid-division effort in a very good race. And you look at his wins, sort of 3 on soft ground out of the last 4. Tends to go well in small fields, so I'll go Get Shirty. I think this could be a good sort of card to have a crack at the place pot Newbury on Saturday. Stick Get Shirty and Not So Sleepy in there, and hope for a bit of an upset.
hope for an upset. So the pair of you two siding with the two outsiders in this race. Not so sleepy, 10-1. Get Shirty 12-1. I can see about him as well as the outsider of the field in what is going to be a bit of a tricky race, all things being said. Now we have the Ayr Silver Cup handicap, so our second run down the ladder from the Ayr Gold Cup. But for the 3-year-olds and over 6 furlongs at 225, and still just as many old favourites and characters in here, Andrew. So how do you start to try and solve this one?
Yeah, good old races. I mean, first of all, it tends not always to go to market expectations. The last 10 renewals, the horses in the front three, the first three in the betting, won from 35. 3-year-olds just won from 42, although a lot of those were big prices. And horses have been off the track for more than 6 weeks or longer. Naught from 33. Again, you know, the form book can probably be chucked out the window as well. The recent form book, last time out winners 1 from 28. Horses who ran second last time out 0 from 31. And again, horses who made the running in their prep race 0 from 27 in the past 10 renewals. So yeah, it's one way you kind of, you know, looking for a hold up horse who perhaps hasn't got a recent run, but perhaps not an obviously good one. There's quite a lot of pace on the far side. You look at the horses drawn low. There's so a lot of them like to race up the pace, apart from Admiral B from stall 4. Hasn't won yet for Richard Fye, but it's got some useful 6 furlong form for him since coming across from Ireland. Second of 19. This is away from York, which he doesn't seem to handle. You know, second of 19, third, 7th of 24, beaten 2 lengths. That was in last year's Ayr Gold Cup when racing closer to the pace than ideal. 5th of 11, beaten 2.5 lengths. And that was on this year's comeback when his patient star with no help at Newmarket. And then, you know, he's got 7th of 21 again at Newmarket when his patient star was at a disadvantage. And a 6th of 13 at Pontefract when he was third best of the closers. Now, he's going to appreciate the strong pace. He's already run well in the Ayr Gold Cup last year. He's been off the track for 90 days, which isn't ideal, but he's by our dad, and traditionally they do well off a break. So I thought he had a squeak if that stall forward, no problem. The other more Jump the Gun, who ran a cracker in the first time blinkers at Doncaster, when you had to be on the front end. The winner of the 3rd and 4th were up with the pace throughout. He did best of the closers. Another Bar for Adrian Kitley, who ran well from off the pace when it was a prominent races benefit at Chester last time. And Call Me Ginger, I ballsed up by tipping this one last week because it was just the soft ground. And although you look at that soft ground Chester win, when you look at the times of the races, it wasn't that soft at all. And when you split his races by pro forms going allowance, you realise that he's got a genuine preference for good or faster going. You know, having won on good to firm ground the time before at Ascot, why I was tipping and backing a horse on soft ground at Doncaster next time out, I don't know. But if it's if the time's on the first couple of days and the weather's suggests it's not too slow and the weather's favourable, then he could go well. So yeah, I'll go. I'll just go for 2 of those: Jump the Gun and Admiral. But it's a typical minefield, as you'd expect. Jump the Gun coming out stall 12, Admiral out of 4.
Yeah, so trying to kind of get a horse more towards the centre, and then a lower drawn one, Admiral D 33-1, but giving a good shout to a few horses in there, all at feasible prices as well. But David, as Andrew said, it is an absolute minefield this. So how did you narrow it down?
It is a minefield. That's literally the opening gambit of what I said on my little paragraph. The first word is minefield and then of a race. But I found it quite easy to narrow down. I'm feeling scarily confident in these big field handicaps. This is a classic race, though, because this is the consolation for the Gold Cup. You've got a big field handicap here, and then you've got the big field handicap in the Gold Cup proper itself. Prime example of where it's good for a Saturday to have a little fun cross doubles between them. So if you fancy 2 or 3, stick them in each way doubles with the Gold Cup after. But I'll give you the winner of both races, but we'll do the Gold Cup after. The winner of this, though, is Wob Wob Wob. Literally, it's just, all the signs point to this being a really long-winded plot. I mean, that's probably not absolutely true, but I can give you a little bit of a case. And then, like I say, it's a bit of a stretch to say it's a long-term plot, but who knows? Could be. Booking of Holly Doyle is already eye-catching, right? And Holly Doyle has ridden this horse before. We'll come on to that a little bit. Has been much more of a 7 furlong specialist the last couple of years, with 4 places and 1 win at that trip from 15 runs. So that's 4 places, 1 win from 15 runs at 7 furlongs. This is 6 furlongs, you may be asking. Well, sported a first-time visor last time out when dropped back to 6 furlongs, travelling like an absolute tank. Won in his group that day, finished 3rd overall. So I know Andrew touched on a few little stats there. Maybe horses that are like making the running wouldn't necessarily be ideal for this, but she didn't finish 1st or 2nd. So happy days. Same mark now. Interestingly, he ran over course and distance as a 2-year-old when he was beaten favourite in a nursery handicap. Hung really badly that day. I watched it back, just looked like a babyish performance, but he won either side of that. So I'm not saying that like that's you can class that as course winning form, but I think there was maybe a little bit of an excuse that day. Hanging about all over the course as well. The fact he's now got the visor on will make me not have to worry about that in the slightest. He was eye-catching when he was 3rd over 7 furlongs in September under Holly Doyle, the only other time that she's ridden the horse. That was go back and watch the race, genuinely eye-catching, probably should have won the race. So that was back in 2021. So as much as I'm saying that this may have been a plot for a couple of years, that is a bit of a stretch. But he is just a 5-year-old. The visor helped plenty last time. The drop back to 6 furlongs seemed to help as well. And Holly Doyle obviously gets on very well with the horse. He's drawn in an 11 as well. Last year's winner came from 10. So it's just easy, isn't it? Wob, wob, wob. Wob the bookies.
Wob, wob, wob. 10-1. Holly Doyle, Adrian Keatley, who's going along in good style at the minute. As we know, there's a couple of winners then the other day too. So wob, wob, wob. Confident case made, therefore, by Dave. I think that's the way to say it. But Andrew, you've got another point.
Just on the subject of the draw, as we're recording this, they're about to run the 225 at Ayr, the only big field sprint handicap on day 1 of Ayr's Western meeting. 20 runners. Do you want 1 to 10 or 11 to 20, Kate? You can go first. Dave can have the others for the who buys the next round.
Oh, yeah. When we get our Christmas party, more importantly, hint to admin. What were the options again?
Stalls 1 to 10 or 11 to 20.
I'll go 11 to 20.
11 to 20. So you've got 1 to 10, Dave, and it's a round of Nymphadora Thunder Bears when we next have a GG social.
When we ever have one, then yeah, right, a round of that. Goodness me, we all will be absolutely firing on all cylinders on that basis, right? As I've got it in the background here, so I'm just seeing them load. So Andrew, you keep an eye on that because Dave's going to lead off on our next race, though, instead of us waiting for this race to jump, and we'll see how we go, because we do have another good handicap up next in our schedule, a 0 to 105 handicap for 3-year-olds and over 10 furlongs at 240 at Newbury. Balance play heads the way. So Dave, who wins this one?
So this was a race I got quite excited about. Like you'll see the last race, wob, 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 started to get me excited. I wrote these in, I'd always do it in like a really weird order, but these weren't, I didn't just get like 3 or 4 races into the preview and get warmed up and start fancying horses. This was one of the races I maybe looked at 3rd. But it looks a pretty good looking race, to be fair. We've got a few last time out handicap winners who are on the rise. We've got Mustazid, who's was a back-to-back course winner last spring. They're all towards the head of the market, but I wasn't gripped by any of them. And I think I like the chance of Certain Lad for Jack Shannon and George Bass. Now, he's moved to Jack Shannon. He's had a few runs and he hasn't won just yet. But I do think this horse is a winner in waiting. George claims £3 again. Rode him last time out, and he's ridden this horse a few times this season. He's had 2 places and a nowhere to their name. The run the last day was pretty eye-catching. He didn't get the clearest of passages. That was a 14-runner race, and then this time we've only got 8. The handicap where he bombed, there was 18 runners in there, so it may have just been that he got a bit caught out in a bigger field. We've only got 8 in this field. And that 3rd that he had earlier in the year at Chester, that was a 9-runner field, and that was off a £6 higher mark in soft ground. And in that particular race, he would now get a £14 swing with the winner that day and a £13 swing with the runner-up. So they've sort of franked the form, albeit they're younger horses and they've gone on like an upward curve. But those horses were Pride of America, which we know runs earlier on in a Group 3. And then we've got Savvy Victory. So he is a 7-year-old. He might not have much more improvement in him. And there are some less exposed types in here. But we know where we stand with him, right? 4 of his 6 starts for this particular yard have been RPR'd in the 100s. For me, he is a handicap winner in waiting, and I think the weight is up. So Certain Lad for Jack Shannon, George Bass will win the 240 at Newbury.
The old boy of the party, 7-year-old Certain Lad, and a nice price to boot, as well as I'm just watching this race crossing the line there, Andrew.
Unlucky Kate, the favourite bolted up from Akunk, the favourite, bolted up from stall 7, followed home by runners drawn 12 and 21 by the looks of it. So yeah, they're kind of racing the heat down, arrowhead formation down the middle of the track pretty much. They've avoided the far rail like they have done at Ayr pretty much all season. And yeah, stand-side runners never got into it. So doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be repeated in the Silver and Gold Cup. I think we saw that last year when we had of those the bronze, the silver, and the Gold Cup. We had stand side, centre, and far side across the 3 different races. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, tricks on UK.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, the Nymphadora Thunderballs on me. Yeah, that's exactly the case. So with the bronze, silver, and gold cup, every single year I think, right, I've got a handle on the draw now. And like you say, it's like the universe stitches you, where it will completely reverse itself for the next race then in the sequence of them. So yeah, it's something that I actually try not to pay too much attention to. I'm going to hope that that wasn't the case. As you say, they went in kind of geese formation, didn't they, really? Arrowheading down the centre of the track. But more immediate, well, not really more immediate future, but Andrew, who wins this handicap at Newbury, the 240?
Yeah, certain lad. I've been banging on all season now. He's a small field merchant. He's only ever won in fields of 11 or fewer runners. You know, comments like switch, not clear run, hampered, crop up with great regularity in his form figures when he faces more rivals. I was really annoyed last time out because I'd given him a good mention on the pod and said, you know, get a few non-runners, I want to back this. 14 run at Sandown, he was a 22 to 1 shot. He's finished second, but you look at that race, the 3 horses who raced widest of all into the straight finished first, second, and third, and he was afforded plenty of room in the race. So it's just a bit disappointing to see him run so well there because it means we don't get such a big price here. But yeah, he's. I mean, he hasn't had that many opportunities on soft ground, given he's by Clodoville and certainly bred to relish it. So certain lad for me.
Certain lad, you two agreeing yet again then. So we've done a full rotation, come back around to agreement. Sure, it won't last long. Not exactly. As we move to Ayr, this is for the Group 3 Firth of Clyde Stakes. Again, I'm fighting every instinct in me not to do an impression here. But again, for the 2-year-olds over 6 furlongs at 3 o'clock. Rakia is the heavy favourite here. But Andrew, is that short price justified?
That's a that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, this before last year's race, I'd have said I'd be a bit worried about stall 2, because in the previous 10 years before last year, you know, you'd have backed every runner drawn at stall 8 or higher. You'd have found 7 winners from 47 bets, made a profit of almost £55. Although that angle was 0 from 5 last year, and those 5 who were beaten included the 6 to 4 favourite. But again, yeah, it's not a very big field, is it? They'll probably just race in a heap in the middle, so I wouldn't be against her on draw grounds. Probably wouldn't be against her at all, in all honesty. It's just not a race I've got a strong opinion in, to be honest. So I'll leave it to Dave. Pass.
Yeah. Pass. You're allowed a pass in with the amount of races we're going to. To be fair, now Rakia's price has been sort of all over the place, and now that you look across the board of what bookies have got her priced up at, there's a whole array of different prices here, Dave. So it's trying to sort itself out, this market, but she is still heading the way with all of those firms. So is that a price, a dependent on top price we can get, that would interest you?
No, and the thing is, the market will do its thing. The market knows best when we have these imbalances. So Rakia before final decks was maybe 8 to 13, so a lot shorter than the 11 to 8 you can get now. The one they've priced completely wrong is Dorothy Lawrence. You can still get 8 to 1 at the time of recording. Very much doubt that's going to be available at the time that this gets published. It's as low as 4. I say it's not the right way to talk about horse, is it? She is as low as 4 to 1 with Corals and Ladbrokes. It is a fifth of the odds for the scummy each way punter. There are 9 runners, so we're going to get each way 3 places. Dorothy Lawrence just looked the absolute most no-brainer bet of the whole of Saturday at the prices. Like I say, she's going to contract, and I do think the favourite would drift out. But she's a course winner, albeit that was a really lacklustre win. 2 to 11, I think. It was on slower ground and maybe just won because of the fact that it was like a better horse. Last 2 starts have been at 6 furlongs, and I think they've been much more improved. And they've been backed up as well. So the Racing Post ratings have stuck those last couple of rungs. I don't think her official rating of 100 is wrong. I think she is definitely 100 horse. Those last two rated runs, right, they were RPRs of 98. They're £6 clear of what anything else has achieved in the race, but both of those did come on good to firm ground. She was a non-runner at Newbury for a listed race on good to soft, so she might want it to dry out, but I'll trust the trainer to leave her in if they think that the ground's okay. So Dorothy Lawrence for me is just one of those absolutely knocking each way bets, because genuinely think I would, well, not necessarily have her as favourite, but I think she's got a genuine proper chance of winning the race anyway. And when you can get profit for her just coming second or third if something does spring up, then do that. But Dorothy Lawrence, definitely.
Get the balaclava out for the each way thievery that is there then for Dave. But no, I totally know what you mean in a race of this nature with the market the way that it's trying to settle itself at the minute. 8-1 about Dorothy Lawrence looks a very fair price for a consistent type. Now back to Newbury for the Group 2 Mill Reef Stakes for the 2-year-olds over 6 furlongs at 3:15. A pretty open contest really, but Dave, who wins it?
I mean, it isn't that open. I know it's good to see the market's got it priced as it is, but I feel like the market's balls this one up as well. This is one that's vying for nap status, so not definitely confirmed that it'll be the nap, but it's up there. We'll have to see how I feel when we get towards the end of the show. Really, it's a really good looking race, to be honest with you. I quite liked it. I was trying to do a reverse on this, so I tend to look at the bigger price runners in these types of races just to think. Sometimes the market get a bit excited about names of horses and horses that are maybe dropping down in grade or anything like that. Trying to see if there's anything at a big price I like the look of. Spanish Phoenix was one that I was going to start to make a bit of a case for, but Haatem just absolutely battered this horse every time they run. And then I was thinking, well, he's just going to be short price favourite. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, fortunately, he's not. You can still get 11-2 about this horse at the time of recording. So I'll give a bit more of a substantial pace than just saying that. It might probably not be the race that we were expecting in the middle of the week. There's a couple of horses that have come out because of the heavy ground, and I feel like that's why the market is settled where it has now. He's sort of still priced on the fact that there might have been some better horses coming in here, but I just think they've made a mistake with that. Beat Iberian at Goodwood in a Group 2. That horse won last Saturday in the Group 2 Champagne Stake. Was second to City of Troy in the Superlative Stakes. Everyone's talking about that being the best thing since sliced bread, but isn't every single one of Aidan O'Brien's horses. Flopped last time out at York with no explanation provided, right? But I'm happy to put a line through that. York's one of those tracks that, meh, potato. Some people might just not like it there. So it's a little bit risky to do that, but we've got to do something about it. We can't trust that that form's correct. If we look at the 3 runs prior, his RPRs are all about 100, gives £3 to the field for that Group 2 win. But Mr. Sketch, who they've got as current favourite, was beaten by a now 89 rated horse on debut. So regardless of how impressive he looks last time out, the third has come out and run since, been well beaten and given an opening mark of 60. So, I mean, I'm not the fittest of people, but I'd imagine I could give a pound into a 60 rated horse, and I wouldn't necessarily be favourite for a race like this. So I'm not so keen on the favourite, Mr. Sketch. 7 questions is definitely interesting. Doesn't really have much to find on RPRs with Haatem within that £3 that they get as well, but has been beaten in a listed and Group 3 races the last twice. So really, 7 questions is bringing Class 4 and Class 5 form to the table, and that's just not as trustworthy as what my guy's been doing. Array was beaten favourite in that Group 3 race with 7 questions in there. I don't think this horse has always looked the most straightforward, or maybe gutsy stroke genuine, like in an actual race. Mansa Musa, who beat this horse on his second start, has twice been the bridesmaid since, and people might want to say the form's quite good, but it was at Group 3 and listed level. It's not as if he won those races, and this is a Group 2. So I'm pretty sweet on the chances of Haatem. I'm going to say the name about 10 different ways. And again, 11-2 at the price at time of recording. I think that's stupid. This horse, for me, will go off favourite.
I can believe that he wasn't vying for favouritism myself when I was looking through this, really. Like I say, he has the standout form for me where, like I say, he did disappoint last time out, but I just think the quick ground was against him. He dropped back to this trip of sprinting trips, which did look a bit interesting at the time.
Doesn't that worry you that he's done so well over 7 furlongs on 2 occasions, and now he's dropping back to and he dropped back to 6 and ran a shocker?
Yeah, well, it was mainly the ground, because that was the initial impression. I thought that's a bit of a weird move, dropping him back down to a sprinting trip. But the fact that Connections have the confidence to run him again here, we're expecting testing conditions. I'm hoping that extra stamina will come to the fore. Ground will be no issue for him as well. I know he previously run well on good to firm ground earlier in his career, but it wasn't as though it was a standout run. He was still overturned his favourite even on that occasion. So I just think he wants softer ground. He has the best form, and I'm willing to give him another chance over this trip with hopefully stamina to the fore. So like I say, 11-2 for me. Also looks a very fair price. But Dave was saying that Mr. Sketchy old favourite, Andrew. But are you against Dave and I by the sounds of it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, only got 8 runners, but we've seen time and time again at Newbury when the ground's like this, a very high draw can be advantageous, or even a very low draw. So you get to the point where when you go back to the Greenham meeting at the start of the season, if you were drawn near the stand side, you didn't have a prayer. Horses like Knight were getting beaten about 30 lengths because they were racing near that rail, and it was a case of you needed to be down the middle of the track from a low draw. So even with 8 runners, I'd say if you are having a bet in this race, just maybe hold fire and have a look what happens on Friday and in the early races on Saturday. I mean, Mr. Sketch was very impressive last time out, albeit in a weak race, but being by territories, this much softer ground could bring about more improvement. And again, it's potential, isn't it, rather than what is achieved on the track. But I think it's a brave layer to sort of take him on and say, I want to lay as much 3-1, 7-2 as I can, because that was a Mickey Mouse race last time. You don't know what he's capable of. The one I'll just put up as a token each way is Spanish Phoenix, who I tipped up at Royal Ascot. And only won a Mickey Mouse Leicester race on soft ground second time out. But that Royal Ascot run was an absolute belter. I think I put him up at 125 to 1 or 100 to 1. He was backed into 33s. And he's done 4th best of his group. He was drawn high. He needed to be drawn low. So he's run an absolute belter, finishing 8th overall. Disappointed twice since over 7 curl. Back to 6th on ground that he seemed to handle well enough at Leicester. Maybe Spanish Phoenix can get into the frame at a big price.
That's a nice price, and Dave was initially looking at him as well, 25 to 1 then, about Spanish Phoenix, who, like I say, you've got a bit of an affinity with then from that big run at Royal Ascot a few months back. Now we have the main event itself. It's the Ayr Gold Cup, a heritage handicap for 3-year-olds and over 6 furlongs at 335. 8 to 1 the field. Orazio heads the way, but Andrew, right up your street this race as always. So who did you land on?
Oh, so yeah, this was used to be one of my favourite races in the calendar, and in the old days when the Silver Cup first came out, you could just look at the draw of the Silver Cup and then sort of work 5 stalls either way and find the winner of the Ayr Gold Cup and narrow it down to about 10 runners out of 24 and have a few each way bets in the race. But we as we sort of touched on earlier when we were talking about the Silver Cup. You look at 2021, I think it was like, middle in these Bronze Cup, far side of the Silver Cup, and then Bielsa came down the stand side and blew them apart, rating alone against the rail from stall 25. So it's a bit of a minefield on the draw front, and it's a bit of a minefield when you try and sort between them as well. There's been money around for Mr. Wagyu, but everyone knows that I tend to back him in June, July, and although he ran well in Ireland last time out, he has placed in this race before. I thought he'd probably run well without winning. Batcher for Archie Watson, I could see bouncing back from that disappointing effort when favourite of the Curragh last time out. Rohan has been a talking horse, but it seems every time Rohan runs, he's a talking horse. Oh, this is it. This is the race for him. And there's been so many excuses made for him all season. I think that those are sort of running thin now. Orazio, I ended up stupidly bet in the Stewards Cup. Ran a stinker, but you could blame the draw. Ali's Dancer as well. I called the draw wrong that day. He's run well to finish 5th that day. But will he get his needed soft or heavy going? Significantly, I wouldn't necessarily put you off Bielsa. I mean, that would be it, wouldn't it? You dig one out at a big price and then and it wins the race on its side, and Bielsa comes and does you again. Stall 1, they haven't raced on the far side all season, it seems. They seem convinced that it's slower, but with the rest of the ground poached up by 2 days of racing, a horse who seems to enjoy racing alone. Who's to say that far side rail, and we could see Bielsa go solo up the far side from stall 1. So I think whatever you're betting in the race, just have a saver on Bielsa, because it's going to be heartbreaking if he does what he did in the race 2 years ago. Fast Response, interesting that they've taken this route with her rather than go for the fillies, the Group 3 or the listed race elsewhere at this meeting. and she'll relish the ground if it does get proper soft. I thought there's a half a chance Probe could bounce back. Aberama Gold, even despite disappointing since the Stewards Cup, but yeah, and basically I've got a long way of saying I haven't got a bloody clue. Over to you, Dave.
At least you teed it up well and you gave us a few notes along the way though to come to that conclusion. But yeah, I mean, Bielsa, it would just be the ultimate sod's law and the ultimate way of racing, just laughing at us at punters if Bielsa goes and does what he did a few years back. But on the other side, from stall one on the fresh ground, then for him 14-1. So yeah, perhaps just have a saver there. I'm already thinking about that. So Andrew's gone round the houses then, Dave. Did you have sort of a more beeline approach to this race?
Yeah, definitely a much more direct approach. I'm doing Matty a favour as well because I know he's been mentioning Rohan quite a few times on Twitter and just keeps reappearing. Like Andrew said, he's a bit of the wise guy's horse. Plenty of people have been talking about him. 2 weeks ago on the Weekend Watch, I actually did say to people back him for the Gold Cup. This particular race, he was 20-1 at the time. He's about half that price now, purely for the fact that he was going to get hyped up. He was going to shorten. I'm not abandoning the ship, though. I do think that he has got a bit of a chance in here. That race 2 weeks ago, the Sprint Cup Stakes at Haydock, he used that as a prep run when he beat Summerhand. That was his, or Summergand. That was his last win. That was last October. Gets a few pounds from that rival now, and they're similar in the betting in there. His run at Newcastle, the penultimate start, was the one that's quite eye-catching. That was one of the Racing League. I think most people watching it, I think Alligator Alley won, people would be saying that this horse could or should have won. I think the main takeaway from that is the fact that although this horse is £4 out of the handicap, he'd run off the same mark that he did that day at Newcastle. And if you watch the race back, you would watch it and say, if they ran the race again, he definitely would have a chance of winning it. So I think the mark's okay. I think Rohan definitely deserved to be mentioned. And like I said, put him up a couple of weeks ago, so I'll stick with that anyway. But the second one I want to go in with is from Goodwood. It's Alley Dancer. Now, he does want the rain, right? And we've talked about the fact that there's not much forecast for Ayr, but Scotland, right? Surely there could be more rain. So he might want it a bit softer, but we've also got a couple or a few days worth of racing at Ayr on the ground. If it's been good, the soft's going to get cut up a little bit, so it might prove a bit more testing. He ran a good fifth at Goodwood, to be fair. One little group of 5 that he ran in there. He beat Orazio out of sight that day, and he got a £6 swing with Aberama Gold that Andrew touched on, although it might not be his time now. I think Alley Dancer got a bit of a squeak, so Rohan and Alley Dancer are the two that I'm going for. It's a bit harsh, though, to say that we've got like a 25 runner handicap. There's 6 places up for grabs. The 2 that I'm putting up are both about a 10-1 shot. I feel like a bit of a fraud doing them 2, but I do think the winner comes from one of them, but we're going to need some luck.
Yeah, and then they're drawn. You've got your variables of a drawn. Alley Dancer in 5, Rohan in 25. So at least you've got them across the track then as well. But yeah, 10-1 though, then about the pair of those 2. Interesting ways to play this race. I'm going to have about 3 on this, if that's okay. But the main play though, I mean, I hate this when you start to run back through the previous renewals and you try and match some of those variables and conditions then up to this year's. And then you end up on the favourite. I hate it when that happens, but that's happened now with Orazio here, where I'm going to have him as my main bet. A horse who, as we've all said, did disappoint last time out in the Stewards Cup at Goodwood, but the conditions were just awful, as we know. And he went into that race as an unexposed type. Now, he had previously shown good form on soft ground. However, I mean, he just couldn't cope with conditions that day, as stated by Connections post-race. He was also on the wrong side, as you said, Andrew, in the early stages. He'll get, hopefully, the better conditions here. He's drawn nicely, hopefully, in 23, where I traditionally want a higher draw than in this race. Give him £1 back for last time out and sees him running off of that magic number of 101, the same winning mark as 2019, and for the Dead Heat in 2018. Both of those winners also rated 101. So hopefully the magic number will come to the fore again with Orazio, and he can bounce back from last time out. But I will also like a Ramazan in here. Again, last time out winner in Bingo Card Ready Racing League contest, and also Montasib in here, who can be marked up for his 8th place finish last time out in a heritage handicap at Ascot. Again, he was on the wrong side there. He also didn't get a clear run, and he too has been dropped £1. This mark doesn't look beyond him, and he's a fair price as well as the long shot of those 3. So that is the Ayr Gold Cup. Dave, I'm going to go back to you, please. Anything from anywhere else? I know we've covered like everything, but anything else?
No, nothing from elsewhere. That's plenty to get stuck into, I think.
Plenty. Andrew, likewise, or?
Yeah, not had a chance to look at the other races yet.
Not at all. Right, Dave, your nap, please, for Saturday. I feel like we're going to aim for the same horse, though, unfortunately.
Not unfortunate. I'm due some good form. I've had a little bit of a lull the last couple of weeks, but yeah, it's going to be Haatem in the Mill Reef Stakes 3:15 at Newbury for the aforementioned reasons. Just wins.
Just wins. I know I couldn't resist that pricing about Haatem, but I'll allow you that one. I mean, I would be siding with Haatem as well, but I feel like for a bit of difference, I may as well go Orazio. If I'm going to side with a favourite in a wide open handicap, then I may as well go Orazio. Therefore, in the Ayr Gold Cup, Andrew, your nap.
The Nymphadora Thunderbear straight forecast. No, I'm going for Certain Lad at Newbury. Finally gets his conditions this season. Smallish field, some dig in the ground. Jack Shannon's horses typically go well in the autumn.
They certainly do, and a horse that both you and Dave agreed on as well. Right, that is everything from us on a jam-packed show. Thank you so much to Andrew and to Dave for all of their hard work. Thank you so much to you for watching. Enjoy your Nymphadora Thunderbears this weekend. Best of luck with your bets, and we'll speak to you again next week.